Good morning from Scotland, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever it is that you may be watching the webinar from. My name is Jacqui Aird-Paterson, and I've been delighted to be invited by AZTech on creating high-performance project teams. A little thing about AZTech before we move on. AZTech are a company with over 28 years of international delivery in terms of different types of training. I've worked with them as a consultant for probably about 8 years. They teach in a number of different worldwide locations, and I certainly have delivered myself in a number of locations for them. And for AZTech, they have a particular mantra, which is exceptional service, exceptional delivery. So I'm hoping that you feel today that that's exactly what you're going to get as we go through this 1-hour webinar. Okay, so I'm going to take you through into the first slide. So there's a little bit about myself. Oops. A little bit about myself. I am fully qualified in relation to projects. So project management, that's both PMI, APM, IPMA, and Prince. I'm qualified in each of those. I've also got a Bachelor of Science, and I'm currently doing a Master's in International Project Management. I also teach at Master's level at universities. I'm also a Master of NLP, which is Neuro-Linguistic Programming. I also work as a project manager, as well as doing my international facilitation and training. I work as a consultant for a number of different companies. I do deliver coaching and mentoring, and I do this both professionally and informally, and I am a business owner. So lots and lots of strings to my bow, shall we say. One of my key things is this quote down here is my own. I work with clients and individuals to help them become better project managers or project team members and focus on the competencies that are required to aid them in their journey. And that's very much the way that I deliver training, and that's very much what I'll be looking at today. Please do make use of the chat pod. So if you have something that you wish to say to me, please feel free to type something into the chat box. I'll try to keep an eye on it as much as I can. I'm going to hide myself now from the webinar because you don't want to be looking at me, and we will then be able to focus on the slides. Okay, so next slide is about protocols. It's really quite good if we are attending a webinar, looking at a webinar, it's good to think about different types of protocols. So some webinars you come and you just listen and people talk constantly, and that's absolutely fine. I do like to have some interaction. So as I say, I've invited you to write things into the chat pod if you wish to. We will do the majority of the protocol or the webinar through general session, but there will be a couple of opportunities where I will be asking you to answer key questions, and effectively what we'll be doing is we'll be looking at it as a poll, and we'll be looking at it as the results as they come through. Good morning from Nigeria. Okiriki, is that how I say your name? Our goodness, that's a wonderful name. So audio mute, please. If you do, make sure that your mute is on audio, your camera is off. But as I say, if you do have any questions or any comments, please feel free to add them to the chat. Okay, what we're looking at today are 4 key areas. First of all is what defines a strong, high-performing team. When we work in projects, it's really crucial to think that we can deliver from a strong perceptive, and also that we can really add to the teams, or we can lead the team towards, a good level of performance and delivery if we can. We're also going to look at the fact that there are a number of issues when it comes to working in teams. So we're going to look at recognizing some of the common issues in relation to the teams that maybe are not performing as well as they feel that either they could or that they wish to perform. We're then going to take it to be thinking about, well, what can we then do to strengthen our own teams? And that's where I'm going to then be looking at some of the tools and methodologies that we can actually use to help you strengthen your own teams within the project environment. Now, if some people are here and they're saying, well, actually, I'm not a project person, but I do work in teams, this will still be of interest to you, because teams are always still focusing on delivering objectives. Sorry, I did say it would be a 60-minute training at the very beginning, so for just 1 hour. Okay, Mohammed. So we're looking at how we can strengthen our teams using a number of different methodologies, and ultimately we'll be coming at the end as well to remind everyone that strong communication is one of the key indicators of whether the team is going well or not. Okay, so let me kick off on our first area. So what we've got here is a poll. Now, I've put together some considerations, and based on the considerations that I've given you, I would like you to select your top consideration that you feel is the most important when working as part of a high-performing project team. So I'm going to go to the surveys. I'm going to open my poll. And you would like to just take a look through here. So there's a number of different areas that we have. I want you to select your top consideration when working as part of a high-performing project team. Okay, so somebody's saying excellent communication. Someone else is saying good leadership. Please feel free to select what you feel would be your top answer. Okay, excellent communication is definitely coming through. Visible support by top management, good. Development and delivery of a good project plan. Okay, so I think we've got 8 people have put in so far. If we maybe give you another 1 minute, see if there's anybody else that wants to select something, please. Okay, we're getting a little bit more. Okay. Things are changing, good. Okay, I know that everyone doesn't vote, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to call, let's call it there. So, okay, we've got a couple more. So what I can see is that the clear leader that very nicely fits in with what I was talking about, the strength of the whole program, is the excellent communication between the team members. And it's very, very important. Good communication can come from the top. But if we have communication coming just from the top, we often have what I call are the eagle view and the chicken view. The chicken view are all those members that are working very, very hard. They're kind of, the wings are flapping, they're clucking, they're pecking away. But actually, are they doing the right thing? Are they communicating between one another so that they're all following in the same direction and they're not all kind of running around causing interference with one another? So excellent communication between team members is absolutely crucial, because getting information from the top is good, but we have to remember that we don't have that top view consistently happening. So quite often the top view will then lessen out as people are more focusing on what's actually happening here and what can we actually see. So having that communication between the team members is critical. And of course, one of the biggest considerations in a project team is that if we are all working maybe in separate functions, but we're pulled together for the project, but we maybe don't all work in the same location, then the communication between the team members can be extremely challenging. Also, because there isn't always the same amount of accountability if we don't all work together, then perhaps some of the information we get isn't always valid. There may be information in there that's misleading. Maybe someone has said they finished something or almost finished something, when actually they've only just started. So, we have to be very much aware that the better the communication between the team members, the better the accountability there will be as part of our session. Next, we have the clearly defined objectives, and that is also extremely important. If we're working in a project and the objectives are not clearly defined, it's very easy to have our own interpretation of the objectives in our head. And then what happens is we're then working towards our vision of the project, which may not be the same vision as others. In particular, of course, the same vision as the organisation that's actually funding the project to be carried out. The next one that we have is visible support by top management. It might surprise you or certainly interest you to know that the biggest reason for projects failing is lack of support by the senior management or the executive team. And this is why we have to make sure that the business case is not just approved by the senior management or the executive team, but it has to actually be endorsed and fully supported in a visible way by the senior management to drive that project through, so that the difficult decisions can be made, so that the engagement of the very important stakeholders can happen and happen in a more positive way. One person has selected good leadership. And of course, if we don't have a good leader, we might have the best team on paper in terms of experience, in terms of technical skills, in terms of even motivation. But if they do not have a good leader, then the development and the motivation and the progress that they make can be stopped at any point, simply because where do we go from there if we don't have that good leadership? Okay, I can see that some other people came in, but that's good. It didn't necessarily change the results overall. And what's surprising is that no one selected development and delivery of a good project plan. Now, actually, I chose all 5 of those very carefully, because actually all 5 of them are extremely important. We do have to make sure that even with good leadership and with that good communication, regardless of how clearly defined the objectives are and how well we are supported by the senior management, if we do not develop a good project plan and then don't deliver against that well-developed project plan, then the chances are very, very high that the project will fail to deliver. So very, very interesting, but actually all 5 are extremely important. Okay, thank you for that. We're going to move on to back onto the presentation, and we're going to move on to the next slide. So here I've got 2 clear definitions, one from myself and one from the APM, which is the British Body of Project Management, so the Association of Project Management, and they have just released PMBOK 7th edition. Now, some of you might know PMI, don't necessarily know APM. PMI are the American body of knowledge, but they're the most well known throughout the world. And I am fully qualified in PMP, and I teach people PMP. But one of the areas that I really like is the APM body of knowledge, or the APM version of project management, because they teach very much around competence and around people. The PMI is currently in the process of changing, and the new exam from the 2nd of January 2021 is going to be much more in line with what the APM or even the IPMA, the International Project Management Association, currently teach. So their definition, very, very simply, is a team is a group of people working together in a collaboration or cooperation towards a common goal. So they've just updated it. It used to be working together with their different skills towards a common goal. But what they realized is you can still have people working together with various skills. But if those people then come in with their high level of skills but refuse to collaborate or work in cooperation with others, then it's very unlikely they're going to achieve the common goal. So that's the newest, very hot off the press definition from the APM BOK 7th edition, which actually was just released last month. So very, very hot off the press. Now, we've also got one other thing that I look at, because when I do a lot of work with my clients, it's about looking at the project teams and looking at how can we improve those teams? How can we make them not just understand what needs to be done, but how can we get them into that mindset where they recognize the need for that high performing potential? So this is one of my own quotes that one of my colleagues said, you have to write this down. So this is what I've written. When you provide possibilities and opportunities to good people, magic happens. So this is when you're working in a project team and you allow all the people in the team to have the potential to be involved. You give them opportunities or possibilities to, add to the project. This is when the magic happens, because they feel valued. They feel that you can see the skill set that they can deliver, and you're going to ask them to use it and make the most of it. So this is something that I feel very, very strongly about. Now, when we provide possibilities and opportunities, going back to the big C word, the communication, it's really important that we do give back consistent feedback. Now, I give back feedback, and sometimes it may be negative. It's not that I want to give negative feedback, but what I do say to people is feedback is a gift. So if I'm telling you this, it's because I can see the value of what you can offer. However, this is what needs to be improved, but look at what the major event will be once it's improved. So I deliver the feedback in a way that highlights the opportunities or the possibilities for those same people to allow them to add to the magic that can actually happen. I am watching the chat, so as I say, if anybody likes something that's said or wants to question anything that's said, please feel free to type anything in, and I will be keeping an eye on it as we go through. So when we look at our teams, again, a quote that I've got here is from Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson is an American NBA National Basketball Association player, but he's also a very well-known author and motivational speaker. And what he says is the strength of a team is each individual member. At the same time, the strength of each member is the team. So it's all those other members in the team and what they can then do to actually, again, help. So like I say, this is where we're looking at the magic happening. So when we're looking at teams, it's a really good idea to look at teams in terms of individuals, as well as looking at teams as a whole. So when I look at teams as individuals, I think about people with the different skill sets that they can bring to the team. But I do also look for personalities. I don't know if any of you have ever been in the position where you've maybe interviewed someone, maybe for a role, a role in a company, or even a role within a project. And I've done it many times for both. And it's amazing how many times you might look at someone in terms of experience, and so they've got experience, they've got qualifications. And if you were to look at a Venn diagram, if we're looking at the ideal person, we tend to look at experience, the level of qualifications that you might have, and sometimes that's all we have to go on before we actually meet the person, and then can identify, what is it about that individual, the individual behaviors, etc., that will then drive through. And when I look at that, when I've actually been interviewing people, I've had it on occasion where I've thought, okay, these two are definitely the top two based on paper, based on what they say in their CV or their resume, based on what they can offer to the team. These are the two people that are going to be standouts for me. And it is amazing how many times one or two of those people are then not chosen, because then when I get into the actual interviewing component of the program and we start to speak to them, we realize that the personality doesn't come through in the same way. The personality is really then where we get that extra link that brings things together. So I remember interviewing one person, for example, who had lots to offer the team. However, this person, all I could think about was, he will drive my team crazy. He will drive my team to distraction. And yep, you guessed it, he was not one of the ones that were selected. Other times when I'm looking for individuals, it's really great and it adds to the team when you have people from different backgrounds, different cultures, or different types of organizations. So I might have someone that worked in a major Fortune 500 company, and then someone else that worked in a very small, small company that had maybe 12 people in it. But by bringing people from those different backgrounds, different parts of the world, different types of cultures, etc., that's when we see good things that can happen. Another one of my quotes that I haven't actually got in there is culture determines the destiny of change. So when we look at the different cultures, that's when we are looking at what changes can we make and what destiny are we looking at in the future. The more diverse we are, the better the mix of culture, and potentially then the better results we will then have in terms of our destiny and what we can then become. Also in teams, we can think about where they are. So co-located means that they are all going to be situated in the same room or the same local area. Now that's great when that happens, but even some of the teams that I'm now speaking to, it may have been that you were designed to be co-located and working within one particular area, but now during COVID and the lockdowns, you probably finding now that you're working from home, working from different areas, and now there's so many more of us that are working on our own, meeting occasionally, working towards different areas, working towards different objectives, and trying to make sure that we're still working in the same way as we were when we were co-located and working in the one room or the one office. But now we must recognize that there are particular challenges to the communication. So when we look at our teams can be a number of different things. Teams can be virtual, which I think we all now agree, more and more of us are now getting that experience of how we then work together in a virtual environment. Teams can also be working in different time zones. So as I said at the beginning of the presentation, I said good morning because I'm in Scotland. I see we have people from Nigeria, and we may have people from other parts of the world as well. Quite often, last time I had people from Portugal, from Australia. There's been lots and lots of different people from different parts of the world. That also lends itself to a challenge because it may be that we all feel we're better first thing in the morning, but other people might be saying, well, actually, it's not just first thing in the morning, it's 7 a.m. Maybe I'm not used to working at this time, but at the same time, I have to attend this meeting. Or for other people, it's the end of the day. Maybe it's actually past dinner time, and I feel I now want to relax in the evening, spend some time with my family, play games with my kids, etc. But I have to attend a meeting. And of course, teams can also span a number of organizations. When we work on projects, quite often we come together from different organizations, and we've been asked to work together on this project. So when we think about the creation of the team, we now begin to see that when we're looking at high performance teams, we have so many more challenges when we have to look at some of these individual elements, but do come back and do repeat Phil Jackson's quote, because the strength of each member is the team that we then create based on the skills, the attitude, the capabilities, and the motivation of each individual team member. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to make, or are you happy for me to move on? If I don't see anyone typing, I'll take that as you're happy for me to move on. Okay. So recognizing common team issues. We've all worked in teams. Thank you very much. I will move on. Thank you. Recognizing common team issues. There's a number of things that happen when we work with teams. I mean, if I was to ask you to please, type in chat, for example, some of your issues that have occurred, I'm sure there'll be lots and lots of items in the list. Lots of them may be very, very similar to one another, but at the same time, they're all extremely important to you and yourself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to another survey. So I've got this survey ready. And what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the next area. Oh, I find that some people have actually gone into this one. Okay, so let's have a look at this one and see. I know that some people arrived a little bit later. See if there's any of those that you still want to add to. So I would like you to select your top 3 issues that you feel occur when you are working with teams and with teamwork. So please take some time. I'll give you maybe 2 minutes and select your top 3. If you haven't already done so, see if there's any of those that jump out to you. Oh, someone can't see the survey. Okay. Oh, right. Let me go back to this. Okay, so people can't see the survey. Let me see what's going on here. Close. Okay. So I'm just going to jump back on the survey again. Creating high performance teams. Okay, so it's question number 2. Can you see it now? Good, excellent. So yeah, if people want to go in and select their top 3 issues that occur with teams and teamwork. Okay, still got 60 seconds to go. Oh, okay, we've only select one. I did have it as multiple choice, but okay, that's fine. If we can only select one, then that's okay. So 5, 10. Okay, I think, okay, that's looking like I think everyone has then participated. Oh, good, some people can do more than one. Okay, 10 seconds remaining. Okay, so let's end voting. So, excellent. So in terms of the results, we are looking at, so the top score is lack of trust at the top. So lack of trust, this is one of the, I don't know if any of you know Lencioni and the 5 elements of a dysfunctional team. He actually states that number 1, the top reason for teams being dysfunctional is the fact that they do not trust one another. It may be that they don't trust one another, or they don't trust the management, or they don't trust the objectives, they don't trust how things are being done, but it's that lack of trust. If we don't feel that everyone is being treated equally and everything is being done together, that can add to some real issues within our teams. Okay, we followed that on an equal 6, so equal second place, is on the ineffective, repeatable project management processes. So this again is why we try to really encourage, if you work in a project management environment, if you don't already have one, think about a project management office. Project management office doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be extensive and deliver everything. We can have the ones that are project management offices that deliver excellence because they provide planners, estimators, risk management, procurement, legal, document controller, etc. But we don't have that, and we undertake some project management, but the processes that have been approved are ineffective. What we have to do is we have to highlight that. And when we do our lessons learned at the end of a project, it's not good enough to just capture the lessons learned. It's really important then that we think about, well, how can we then improve the processes so we make sure that doesn't happen again? And that's where I call, rather than just lessons learned and looking, it's about saying we hold ourselves accountable to make sure that we don't repeat those same lessons, so we improve our processes. We also have one that I have seen happen a few times, which is too much focus on the strongest team members. Now, what happens there, it's actually twofold. If there's too much focus on the strongest team members, what happens is they end up becoming under pressure. So they start to feel stressed. They start to feel like, oh my goodness, the spotlight is on me and I have to do everything. But at the same time, there are other team members that think, why is it always that person that's getting the focus? I feel that I'm working just as hard, but what happens is they maybe don't call out and say, well, I would like to support this person, or I would like to do this part of the project. So what happens is we have to make sure that we're trying not just to focus on the strong team members, because otherwise what we're doing is we are effectively fast tracking them in one way, but also heading them for a breakdown in another way. So we've really got to try to make sure that we focus on the team members in an equal way. Even if we then say to maybe one of the stronger team members, okay, I've now asked, let's say it was Jacqui, let's say it was me. You say to the strong team member, okay, I've now asked Jacqui to do this piece of work, but it's stretching her a little bit. It's not exactly in her comfort zone. Is it possible that you can maybe guide her? And what we're doing then is we're not asking that strongest member to do the work for me. What we're asking is if they can maybe just give a little bit of guidance, a little bit of motivation, even keep an eye on the results, but we're not asking them to do the work. And we're allowing someone else that has proven themselves to be eager to develop further to actually do some work, but with that cushion that they know that this person, they can rely on them. But the key thing is that we don't allow that person, Jacqui, in this instance, to then say, I'm not sure, do you want to just do it? Because that way, that's when we do lead those strongest team members to effectively too much stress and set them up for breakdown. We don't want to do that. The last one you've got there is the micromanagement. And again, this is something that absolutely destroys teams. Some leaders think that they've got to micromanage in order to show that they are aware of what's going on. Well, you might remember earlier I talked about the eagle view and the chicken view. Remember I said about those chickens, they're kind of pecking, they're flapping their wings. By the way, I'm flapping when I'm talking to you. They're flapping the wings, they're working really hard, but are they actually making progress? Well, nobody knows until they get to a certain point and there's a leader that then goes and flies up above. They fly up above, and this is where the eagle view comes into effect. Felicia, you're not hearing. Is anyone else not hearing? Because as far as I'm aware, everything is recording okay. Felicia, sometimes if you want to pop out and pop back in again, that might work. Okay, Sheku's typing something in. I'm not too sure what, but hopefully it's helpful. Okay, so Sheku is actually hearing me, or Shehu, sorry, is hearing me. So Felicia, maybe if you want to come out and come back in, that might actually help. So in terms of micromanagement, yes, what we need is we need the good leader, which goes back up to, people about, making sure that people are pulling their weight. What we have to do is the leader, rather than micromanaging, should fly up above, or even it could be as simple as just having a 5-minute get together and saying, where are you? How was everyone? Here's the progress we should be making. Where are we now against this? And does anyone need any help? And that's allowing the team to then be aware and provide some of the information back. Now, we've also got here, feedback when given is always negative. Feedback when given should be constructive. So as I said, one of the earlier slides, I actually always say to my teams, please remember feedback is a gift. And I use that phrase on an almost daily basis so that when people do get the feedback, they know that when they accept it, they need to accept it in the way that it's actually being given. Because even if it's negative, what I do is I start off, I give it in what we call the feedback sandwich. So I start off by saying, okay, I respect what you're doing, or I recognize what you're doing, and I can see the effort you're putting in. However, and here's maybe the problematic part that has to be dealt with. But then what I do is I then add that top part of the sandwich on, say, but once that's done, or I'm willing to give you help to make sure that what we can do together is to achieve this or that or whatever it may be. So when we do give just negative feedback, what we're doing is we're killing the morale. We're breaking the morale of the team down so that people then are thinking, why am I here? You know, this is crazy. This is not going to add any value, because all I'm doing is I'm constantly being belittled or being told I'm not good enough, I'm not being valued. And that's what happens to people when all you do is give negative feedback. So do constantly look for positivity. I'm going to look for a couple more of the higher ones. Side conversations, that's again adds to the lack of trust. When we've got people that what they're doing is they're kind of having those side conversations and starting those cliques, that again is very, very poor for morale. It doesn't allow us to feel that we're working together as a team, because what people are then thinking is, why are they speaking to the side and not wanting to share it with others? And if that's something that happens consistently, then that's where people feel that, you know, they're talking about me, or they're talking about something that I've done, and they may feel that that's not very good. The screen may be stuck because maybe I don't know, maybe you're looking at my screen. I'm not too sure, because I did close the results page. The other one that was quite high was no common methodology. And again, that kind of links with the one below. If we don't have a common methodology, if we don't have good processes in place, then our governance of projects is poor. And if project management is something that we need to do, and we need to do well, because please remember, it can take one poorly delivered project to wipe out the profit of a company for a whole year, because we have to invest in our project. And if we fail, we lose that investment. So making sure that the methodology is clear, that the methodology is well delivered and well understood, and that the processes that are delivered are effective, are repeatable, are improvable. Because I always say as well, best practice is good, but I always say that I work at good practice. I don't say I work at best practice, because if I say I'm at best practice, people think we're as good as we can be. No, that's not always the case. We can always improve. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump back on to the presentation. But that's some really good answers in there. So thank you very much for helping me to recognize some of the common team issues. What we're going to do is think about, well, what is it we can then do then to strengthen our own teams? Well, remember, I've been saying since the beginning, communication is absolutely vital. In teamwork, silence isn't golden, silence is deadly. We need to make sure that we allow feedback, we allow open conversation. If we don't, what we do is we stifle it. Then by stifling it, we're actually telling people that what you think isn't important. What you have to say doesn't add value. So it's very important that we allow teams that opportunity to speak amongst one another, but also to be able to speak to senior management or different levels as well. Even if it's just as simple as, you know, a once a month meeting, and we have someone of a senior level that might be there in attendance and says, okay, guys, anything anybody wants to say. Maybe they're doing it like a town hall meeting process. So this senior person is presenting information, but also listening to questions, listening to concerns. That's the only way that we can ever find out what's really happening within a team, and how people are feeling within a team. So again, if we look at some of the information we've got here, if I was to think about myself, I am at my best when I trust people, but also I feel that I'm trusted in return. So I know that they trust me in terms of whatever work that I've said I will do, that I will deliver. Or the work that I said I can do, that they know that I will deliver to the quality expected. I'm also brave enough to speak out, but at the same time, I'm not one of those that speaks all the time. I do take time to listen carefully to others. Now, for many people, Some people find it that it's very difficult to speak out. Maybe they're extremely what we call introverted. They don't find it easy to speak out openly in front of others, but they're very, very good listeners. And then we have the other extreme, which are the people that will constantly speak out. Now, when we're looking in groups or in teams, we need people to speak up. So these people are extremely important. However, we've got to make sure that it isn't just, let's say it was the Jacqui and Dean show. Dean's my husband. He also likes to speak out. Let's say we're a team of 10 people. If Dean and I are constantly speaking out and the others are just listening, is that really a team? Are we re-strengthening the team? It doesn't matter how good or how well intended the things that Dean and I say are. If we don't listen to others, that can be extremely damaging. So what I do is I always make sure that I take time to listen to others, and I do listen carefully. I take notes, and I even come back to them. Now, some of those people I know, if I was to question them in front of other people, they would take it in a negative way. So what I do is I record it, but then I will go and speak to them later, so that once I know in what manner they intended it, if I don't feel that that was made clear, what I will do later is maybe when I'm summarizing the meeting, I will then make clear what they actually intended when I'm maybe getting the minutes recorded. Or maybe at the next meeting, I'm making sure that what was said, I'm then making sure that the intent is also made clear. And I might say, so when, for example, Mohammed said this, this was really important because what the intent was, So it's about making sure that not only are we encouraging people to speak out, but we're also listening carefully to the others that maybe don't speak out as easily. So I usually do try to invite people to take the opportunity to speak. And I do this for two reasons. Number one, I think it's very important we all take the chance to be heard. But number two, I do it also because you might remember I said, some of these people that don't like to speak may be introverted. Now, what I have found in my many years of experience, I'm almost 60 now, so when I look at my years of experience, I've got 40 years of office experience and managing projects and working with groups and consultancy, etc. What I've found is that I am very open and ready to speak out. I'm very extroverted. But what I've found is that sometimes myself and the other extroverts, we're really good at jumping in. We say we'll do something, we get right into it, and we kind of dive in and we're happy to work. What I find with the introverted ones is they're a little bit more hesitant to jump in. But what they'll also be doing is they'll also be sometimes more risk averse. And I don't mean that in the terms of they will avoid risk. What they are doing is they question things a little bit more than the extroverted ones might actually do. So sometimes when I listen carefully to those, once I tease the information out of them, I get a lot more information than I or the other extroverts might have actually noticed, because those people think in a more careful, consistent way. So when I've got these people in my team, I actually recognize that people can often provide nuggets, golden nuggets of information that I and some of my other team members might have missed. So please do recognize that some of the people that are quiet in your team, they actually have other skills that you maybe don't have that can add to the value of the team. I did say earlier that I seek out and acknowledge the best in everyone, basically when I'm asking them all to deliver. I do make sure that, the team spirit and the motivation is there so that we do join up collectively. And when we are joining together, it's because we are now all buying into something with the intent of making a difference. I'm quite happy to take the lead, and I know that I can make change happen. I've done it many times in my past. But one of the things I also do when I'm trying to strengthen my team is that I actually share the lead. So although I might be named the project manager, I will often pass on the lead like a baton to different people as we go through. So I might say, okay, and at the next session, we're going to have Goodness is going to be the next person taking over the team. Or we might have Shehu or Felicia are going to take over. on the next session. So that's the kind of thing that we can really do that, again, can help change happen. I am honest, and I'm always willing to show when I'm vulnerable, because actually I feel that when I share my fears and my weaknesses, I actually become stronger through it, but so does my team. And I hope that you might actually recognize that. It's actually one of the strongest and most potential statements we can have in terms of working as a team or in leadership. Being honest, being willing to show when you're vulnerable or where you're vulnerable, and being willing to ask for help. And then if we look at the statement that we've got on the red, on the screen, we've got the organization communication. If the communication of the organization reflects a positive mood, people therefore see a greater willingness to celebrate their successes. Because again, one thing I see is we'll make success, we'll make progress, and people just kind of say, okay, fine, what do we move on to next? Don't do that. Celebrate the small successes. When I work with my teams, what we do is we work for daily and weekly targets. My weekly target is, what is your big champagne moment? Now, even if you don't drink, you can still call it a champagne moment, or you can call it a chocolate moment or ice cream moment, whatever you want to do. But what we do is look for what's the big champagne this week that we need at least a good part of the team to work together to be able to achieve. So we all know that we're working towards that. And then individually, what I'll then do is I'll then say to the individuals, okay, so what is your mini champagne moment? And they will then identify, it could be a daily moment, it could be a weekly moment, because maybe they actually have to take the full week to work towards this, but they can see that if they achieve this part, then they're much more likely to achieve the bigger champagne moment. So it's about breaking these things up and allowing us to see, because if they are struggling to meet their mini champagne moment, we then know that we need to step in to help them, because they are now showing that they're vulnerable, but we can help them to be able to achieve that. That's when we strengthen as a team, not when we say, oh yeah, but that's your job, I need to leave that to you. If we've managed to achieve something and others need help, that's when we become a team. Very, very important. So this is a question that I'm going to, that I kind of like to think about. When we talk about virtual, what do we actually mean by virtual? Virtual nowadays probably has very different connotations to what it used to have. Virtual used to be that maybe we were all looking at a webinar, or we could be working on our own. So as this one here, we've got individuals working on their own and then people that are working together, but still looking at the same kind of webinar. But of course, virtual can also be, as I said earlier, working in a satellite place, working in a different area, working in a different time zone. So virtual can often mean that people might feel isolated in different ways compared with others. So when we're thinking about when we work virtually, we have to really think about who are the audience and what are they actually trying to achieve, what are they actually looking to get, and what is it that I can do to make sure that they can work better. If I think back to my student years, I was actually student president of my university. And one of the biggest challenges that I took on when I was student president was the reaching out to all of the students, not just the students in the main campus. We had 5 satellite campuses that were actually in different towns around our main city. And I had to make sure that these people didn't feel isolated and forgotten from the previous, from the main campus and the main campus body. And that was a big challenge. But the good thing is that because we made that constant effort of saying, we remember you, we identify with you, we would come out and visit them, we'd invite them to visit us, we would have webinars, etc. Even back in those days, we would work together and how can we work in a collective way. That's what we've really got to look at doing more of. And as I said, maybe this is something you find you do more now that you're maybe working from home much more than you would have done in the past. Now, this is a model that I really like, S.C.A.R.F. S.C.A.R.F in leadership in terms of communication was actually developed by someone called David Rock. He was the co-founder of the Neuro Leadership Institute in Sydney. And this is one model that I really like, and I think it fits very, very well in terms of communication. The first thing is, sometimes what we do is we look at the status and we think about the relative importance of that particular person in relation to others. Now, we're not saying that's wrong, but what we've got to identify is status can be more than just a title. Status can be in terms of the value they're delivering to the project or to the team. The status could be in terms of they're the only person that can maybe do a particular task. So again, that's in terms of the relative importance to others. Or maybe they're the ones that are going to provide the feedback once all the work is done. So when we're looking at status, I want you to really be thinking about status and how could you, okay, I'll pass that on, sorry, Okereke, I'll pass that on to the management, and I'll make sure that we get that sent on to them. So I'll make sure that they can see that chat. Thank you. So yeah, when we're looking at the status, please do make sure that we're thinking about not just the title, not just the number of hours they're putting in, but what they are actually delivering in relation to other people. We all will have areas of relative importance to others. So it's really important that we're able to recognize that. In terms of certainty, this is areas where we can say, rather than looking at threats, what can we say in terms of opportunities? So when we look at risk, people often think about risk as being negative. Oh, that's dangerous. Actually, what can we say with certainty that people can do, that we know that this person or this company or this team or these individuals will actually do, and what difference that will make again to the project and the focus of the team? And again, if we see it as a threat, because we can't always see them as opportunities, if we can only see it as a threat or a risk, then what we have to say then with certainty is, well, what do we need to do then to minimize that risk, to mitigate that risk? Mitigate means to reduce. So what kind of actions can we take and put into practice that will help us to reduce that certainty happening, that means that we've got more control over the future in a positive way? Autonomy is extremely important when we look at leadership and we look at teams. In order to get the best out of people, we have to allow them a level of autonomy. That means that ability to manage themselves, to lead themselves, to control themselves, the work that they're doing and the quality that they're actually giving. But of course, we give autonomy, we may give it freely to begin with, but you've got to prove you've earned the autonomy by continuing to then deliver back to the level that is expected. So just because you've given autonomy of something doesn't mean that you can then decide that you can just deliver 5% of the value that you were expected to deliver. The autonomy is there, given with trust, given with hope, given with the anticipation that you will then deliver to the value expected. This next one's quite important, relatedness. Relatedness means how much can we link that to one another, so that if, for example, if we look at the autonomy, and let's say it was Dean that had done this piece of work, but Dean was really, really busy. And Dean couldn't focus on the work in the way that he should have done. So he delivered something that does tick the box. However, the value or of the content or the level of content that he's given doesn't link with the expectation of the other people. So that links to the relatedness, because now they were expecting something of X quality. They were given Y quality, and Y quality may not be sufficient for their needs. So they've got two options. They can either struggle and try to deal with that, but they've maybe got to change their processes. They've maybe got to ask many more questions, and effectively they've got to do a lot more work than they should have been doing. Or they can actually go back to that person and say, I hold you accountable. This isn't what you were given to do. This is what you need to do, but obviously make sure that the leader is very much aware of that, because sometimes we try to hide things to protect others, But at the same time, much as I don't like whistleblowers, if someone isn't pulling their weight in a project, but then expects the same kind of level of, respect within the team, but they're actually not delivering compared with other people, do they actually reserve that expect? And again, we come down to fairness. Fairness is the perception of fair exchanges between people. So again, that can be between individuals, or it can be that we're treating everyone fair and equal. I have worked on project teams where I have had to pull individuals out, name them and shame them in front of other people, not when they did something wrong the first time, but when it became a consistent thing, that it was proven that they were not going to pull their weight, they're not adding value to the team. I would rather name them, shame them, and remove them from the team, so that me and my team then know what we've got to do in order to make sure that what we said we would do can then be done. I hope that makes sense to you. But as I say, a very, very nice model that I like. We move on now and think about how can we strengthen our own team. Some of you might have seen this, and this is the Tuckman model. And Tuckman, in 2 short minutes, can actually tell you where you are in terms of a team. We follow the signs of the arrow, so we start at the top left-hand corner in terms of forming. That's when we come together and we're asked to work on certain parts of the team. Now, the forming part, the leader must stand up as a leader. They must gain respect from the very beginning and say, hello guys, we're working on this project. Here's what we're going to be doing. Dean, you're going to do this. Mohammed, you're going to do this. Felicia, you're going to do this. Tanya, you're going to do this, etc. Now, when we get to the storming stage, this is often when some of the people might think, well, why did I get that role when I can do X? Maybe I prefer to do that, or maybe I've been asked to do something and I'm now being managed by someone that I've managed in the past. So maybe I don't feel that that's very fair. This is where the team tries to challenge the leadership, and the leader must remain firm, but sometimes they also have to listen to the team, because sometimes you're working with a team that you don't necessarily know, and they know that what works well within the team. Regardless how we get through that, we need to try and get through it quickly, because it's not until we get to norming that we're now in what I call the driving mood. We're in the learning zone now. Norming is about saying, okay, we now accept what we're going to do, and now we're going to define how we're going to do it. We're going to create our processes, or we're going to familiarize ourselves with the processes and procedures, and then ultimately we're going to become a high-performing team. And this is effectively a very simple model, but it's a really powerful model, because we can recognize at any point where we are. We may be performing, but we lose a strong leader in the team. We might go right back to forming. Once the new leader comes in, we might go back to storming, because maybe they say, well, I don't get how you did it before. You're now going to do it my way. And that can be very disruptive to a team that's been at performing level and working very well. So they might be saying, well, we don't respect you yet. So why don't you take us back to norming, and we can get back to performing. And if you still don't respect us and want to change things, then fine, we can do that. But otherwise, let us move on. So this is where this model comes in very, very handy, and it's a well-used model within the field of leadership. The key thing, however, that I think has been an overarching message throughout the whole webinar is the need for strong communication. So I really do want you to always remember, good communication is two-way communication. It's about accepting the good with the bad. If people tell you your weaknesses, accept them, thank them for it, and then think about, how can I remove those weaknesses and make them into strengths? How can I become the best version of me? Because that's when you can either lead a team well, or you can become a stronger team member. Okay, ladies and gents, that is us exactly on the hour. I will stay around for a little bit. If you want to ask any questions, please feel free. I will make sure that you do get a copy of this, and I'll also be, I think you're also, you will be asked by AZTech to give some information in terms of how the program actually went. I do thank you for your time today. I will also pass on the message, Okiniki, that you didn't receive previous ones. Okay, Victor, how do you stress on how to be a better me? Like I say, feedback's a gift. Do take time to ask people, what do you think are my strengths? What do you think are my strengths? But also then, from what people say are your strengths, say, okay, but also then, what do you see that maybe I could improve upon? And do take that, thank them for it, and then think about how you can actually move. There's so many different types of leadership programs out there. You could also maybe get a psychological profile. So for example, I use one called Clarity 4D. Clarity 4D for me is amazing. It allows me to understand myself. It gives you the opportunity to ask others about how they see you. It then allows you to then think about how you can then develop, how you can diversify, and how you can become a better person. And if you do need any more information about that, I can certainly get that to you again through AZTech, Victor. I can certainly get that to you. Any other questions? Okay, I can see a couple of questions are being typed. Okay, I think some questions are being typed, but they just don't seem to be coming through. Oh, here. Okay. I'm glad you touched on micromanagement. I found that freedom is one of the best spring and motivating factors for me. Absolutely. Rabia, that's a very, very key point, because micromanagement is extremely dangerous. We often use the phrase, the helicopter view. And often I think about then, although I use the eagle and the chicken, think about the helicopter. The helicopter view, it's about getting the helicopter to the right level. If the helicopter's too high, so let's say you're flying at 3,000 feet and you're looking down on the project, what can you see? You can't see anything. Everybody looks like ants. You can't actually see what's going on. So even though you're above, you cannot see. You have to then come down a little bit further to then be able to see what's happening. But at the same time, you cannot come down so low that the blades of the helicopter are blowing everything around and make people kind of run for cover. That's what micromanagement actually does. Micromanagement comes down, it disturbs and it disrupts. So if you do want to get that helicopter level, get it to the right level. And then, as Rabia says, it then gives you freedom and it gives you the best spring towards good delivery, and also it's extremely motivating for others. Thank you so much for your comments, Kenneth, Rabia, and Felicia. And Okiniki, what if showing your vulnerability caused team members not to have confidence and trust? That's a very good question. Okay, so if showing your vulnerability demonstrates that people don't tend to have confidence or trust you again, what you then need to do is you then need to go the opposite way. So you've demonstrated that you can show vulnerability, but you've then got to show that you are not just your vulnerability. You've then got to then identify what are your key strengths. Now, it could be that you go back to your manager and you ask for, a mini appraisal, for example, or a one-to-one, and you say, I need to identify what my key strengths are, and I need to ask you to give me the ability to demonstrate those key strengths. At the same time, I recognize where I was vulnerable before, so what can I do to improve those vulnerable areas so that I can then get my team to see the confidence, to gain confidence in me and to start to trust me again. It is very much down to you to do, but what you just need to do is you need to say, look, I opened myself up. I demonstrated that I'm not perfect. No one is. But what I do want to do is I want to take away from this and I want to learn. So what I've done is I've identified my strengths. I'm going to show you my strengths. I'm going to focus on my strengths. But at the same time, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to take myself out of my comfort zone with the help of my mentor or my manager, whoever it may be, in order to go out of my comfort zone with those areas that used to be seen as my weaknesses. So I may still ask for help from time to time because it's growing in this area, but I also want you to see that I have strengths as well as vulnerabilities. We're all a mixture of both, and it's really important that we recognize that. I hope that helps. Thank you very much, Blessing. I'm glad you found it interesting. I find it lovely to, I love this topic. It's so important. So I really enjoy giving it. Thank you. Effective communication within team members is good, but what if is communicated doesn't reflect the objective of the project? Well, again, that's where team members have to hold one another to account. Because if what is being communicated, you've put does reflect the objective of the project, then that's great because it does reflect the objective. But if it doesn't reflect the objective of the project, then that's when we have to hold one another to account. Even if we just say something as simple as, I'm not sure that's the way I see it, or that's the way that I thought of it. Could you maybe explain why you think that reflects the objectives? Or maybe we need to check with the leader, whoever the team leader may be. Yeah, that's okay, Okaniki. I thought that you might mean that. So yeah, it's about holding one another to account, and then maybe saying, okay, well, maybe if this is what we are saying between one another, maybe this is our interpretation, but we need to check that is still the ethos or the area that everyone else thinks is the key objective of the project, because maybe we just misunderstand it in a particular way. What is the best way to manage integrity, administration, management, STEER that are part on our policy? Okay, right. Managing integrity in terms of the administration, the management, STEER that's again about the governance. So integrity is about making sure that things are done correctly to the best of their ability. And often I put the two words, professional accountability. So they're done in the most professional manner, in the professional manner, sorry, and we reflect the level of accountability that's kind of got to be seen here. If we, the best way to manage the integrity that are part of our policy. Okay, Victor, this is a good question. I'm trying to think about how we can actually think about how that goes. Thank you very much, Okaniki. If we've got good governance, it's about making sure that we have the right procedures in place, and we actually call it GOPM, Governance of Project Management. So some of the integrity elements of there will be from the standard company governance, and some of them will be set together simply for the project. Some of them may be based on client expectations or client requests, and some of it may be based on the PMO, the Project Management Office. Now, some of these things, if we're saying in terms of how well they're being delivered, so this is what I'm saying, Victor, I'm trying to understand your question in relation to the STEER that's part of your policy. Are you saying that some people are not delivering it well, or that some people are trying to enforce? Again, it could almost be that micromanagement part, as in, no, this is what the organisation says must happen, which might be from time to time different, remember, in our projects, and that's why we call it governance of project management? Maybe if you could be a little bit clearer, I'd be very happy to answer that. The best way, oh, sorry. Right, so as a leader, how can one refrain from micromanagement? Okay, one thing I often say is sit on your hands. As a leader, we often are the type then, if we are micromanaging, we then kind of jump on the bandwagon. We want to be seen, to be involved. We want to demonstrate how amazing we are. And we kind of, always feel that we have to know everything. What we need to do as a leader is delegate and delegate better. When we delegate, we need to delegate the whole task to the person. Now, if I think about myself, I'm very, very much if I look at the Belbin model, I'm very much a coordinator, but I'm also very much a completer finisher. The coordinator loves to delegate and loves to, grow people, develop people, and really kind of allow them to diversify and grow in one way. So they will delegate very, very well. They tend not to micromanage. However, on the other side, I tend to be that completer finisher who doesn't trust that people are going to do it just the way I want it. My attention to detail, my perfectionism is extremely high. So I want to micromanage, I don't want to delegate, and that's my internal conflict. So what I've now realized I have to do is I have to identify who I'm delegating it to. I might make sure that I'm happy that they understand what's been delegated, and that I've got confidence that they can delegate. If I don't have true confidence, what I might do is I might give some guidance as to how I might expect it to be done. But what I've now learned is I can't do that because that is an element of micromanaging. So what I do is I say, I'd like to give you some guidance as to how you might wish to do it. However, if you identify a better process, something that works better for you, please feel free to, take that way or come back to me and we can look at that, and I'm very happy then to go on with that. So I find by doing that, the coordinator part of me gets to win through, because if they can demonstrate that either they're comfortable with the process I've given, or they can create another process, but they know why they're creating the process, and that they can demonstrate, through a simple, effective manner that it's going to work well, then why would I not allow them to go ahead? So that, for me, is one of the best ways that I can refrain from micromanaging. Another way to do it is to have your one-on-ones each week, so that, again, you're then saying to them, tell me what you've done. Set those champagne moments and those mini champagne moments, because then I can't kill. I'm looking at here. I then won't stop and stifle what you're doing. I'm allowing you to work towards your moments as well. Okay, micromanagement leadership style kills skill and innovation. Absolutely, and that's why I try to encourage people to do things their way. Okay, Victor, back to yours. Taking the steer from senior management that are not in line with the company policy just to enable, okay. Right. Now, Victor, sometimes this is actually really important, because if it's not in line with the company policy, but it is maybe in line with the client policy that maybe you're not aware of, that doesn't necessarily then bring your integrity to play before your subordinates, because maybe it's something that's been set out. But what you need to do then before, if you feel that inflicts upon how you look to your peers or to your subordinates, then I would certainly challenge and say, where is the guidance that allows us to do that? Because otherwise, then you still got the company policy that you might want to dictate to, unless there is something in the government or in the governance of project management procedures that maybe highlights and changes that, because that can happen from time to time. But if that isn't there, they can't then pick it up. It has to be there for you to be able to refer back to, because we do not want your integrity to be questioned by your peers or your teammates. So only when there's something that's actually there. So I like the fact that rehab is actually given a response as well. If there are if the integrity has been affected by the staff member. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes from time to time, it may be that the company have agreed for the purpose of this project that other things can happen, and maybe they're deemed as more important, so they can actually step above the normal ones. But otherwise, you're absolutely right. It's good to have those processes and procedures from the standard governance to be able to refer to. Thank you, Okitaka, and I hope too that you will, Okiteke, sorry, that you will get everything very, very soon. Okay, I think that's probably time up around about now. I think there's something. Thank you very much, Victor. I've really enjoyed delivering this. I hope you all take something away from this. And I do know that a copy of this, the recording of this will be given and made available very, very shortly on the AZTech site. Okay, thank you very much for everyone for your participation. I very much enjoyed it. Thank you very much. Okay, bye.